Well, immediate follow-up should be noted.
Mm-hmm.
So last week, I was brutally accused of potentially having had alcohol before the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time I've definitely had a lot of alcohol.
I also have some follow-up.
Alright, great.
To be smitten and to be smote are both equally acceptable, as in the past tense of to smite. But smitten these days has romantic connotations, so smote would probably be the most appropriate.
Alright, okay. That's good to know.
I suppose the only other follow-up is not even follow-up from the podcast, it is from the stream. Somebody brought up the name Vectormen, and has amused me the entire week.
Yes. That was, Fear Stakes erroneously called us the Velcromen, and,
It's a much better name, to be honest. It's too late?
It's too late. It's unfortunately far too late. The branding is gone.
Oh, the branding's
out
gone
of
already,
control.
yeah.
Yes, that's a perfectly fair point. Let's do it. Let's do the plug. It's ad time.
Yeah, that's right. Barely 10 minutes in, it's time to do an ad.
That's how it
For
works,
ourselves.
Right? If you're enjoying the podcast, but would like to listen to it with friends and/or listen to some of our voices and join us while we play games, absolutely check out twitch.tv/VectormenLive. We're recently, we're getting up to Halloween at time of recording, so we've been playing spooky games, and me and Lawrence were both together experiencing me playing Resident Evil 7 just the other night. And it was a great time was had by all. And I'm sure all the details are going to be in the podcast at some point once, we've hit a point where there's something like specific to talk about. But if you like the Velcromen, and would like to spend slightly more personal time with them, by all means follow us on Twitch. It'll be fun. Follow us.
If you would like to hear us in a vastly more intimate tone of voice, as Lee is just scared of waking up his wife, who's in the next room while he streams, then by all means, go into twitch.tv/VectormenLive.
You're so scathing. That's two episodes for two.
I don't even mind it. It gives it a nice cozy feel. I think you're speaking in like the sort of hushed tones of like a late night jazz radio TV series. Like, hey cats, what's going on? I've got some Miles Davis coming in for you.
I know.
Like, hey, you know what?
I'm only harping on it because I know you're right. I am trying to be more comfortable doing that. I know Maria doesn't give a shit, so it's really me. It's me being cautious of a lifetime of being told my indoor voice sounds much like an outdoor voice. So I'm trying to sort of push the levels bit by bit. So at time of recording, I'm still in the midst of hey guys, welcome to Resident Evil 7. We're gonna have a scary time. But hopefully I'll get to PewDiePie levels eventually.
Of screaming. It seems to be the thing to do. Now, have you considered getting one of those weird padding things that YouTubers like to stick on their walls in order to help the acoustics? Maybe that'll help. even if it's purely as a placebo that allows you to speak louder in its presence.
That's true. No, I mean my house is fine. I should be able to speak at full volume and not panic. It's literally just me. I keep asking Maria every time, am I being too loud? Was that stream too loud? Was this podcast too loud? And so far nothing has come back. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I was asleep.
I guess it's working.
Exactly. So I have to. It's really down to slowly pushing my own perception of my own voice indoors, because I've worked a long time at trying to quiet down my very booming loud voice, which is my average voice. And now
you're in the podcast business. Now you gotta be booming and
push it back
as
up.
possible.
Exactly. So anyway, twitch.tv/VectormenLive. Check us out. Alright, so I came to a conclusion of our lifelong struggle, Lawrence.
The weekly dilemma.
The weekly dilemma, yes, indeed. Which first, news or this week? And I've finally decided.
You've hit upon a solution?
I've hit upon a reason to choose. And it's going to be this week, then news. Because even though one week may be heavier than the other, and that's why we've been kind of tossing them around, seeing which one might be better. What I realized last week, and what I also realized from having uploaded old episodes to twitch.tv/Vectormen You're really pushing it.
Working the brand.
Working the brand. I've enjoyed the episodes where we do the week first more because the news on general exhausts me sooner.
Okay.
Between depressive news, which we often focus on, and just generally keeping up with whatever's going on. The week is easier to talk about. I'm more prepared to talk about it. It keeps my energy level more or less constant right through the segment, so that when we get to news, I'm as energized as if I had just started the podcast.
I see.
But if we do it the other way around, I'll be depleted, and then when we get to this week and what we've been doing, I'm going into it quite depleted. And a little bit wary, and I have to work my energy back up.
And it avoids a situation where you're only about 20 minutes into the podcast and already you're glancing at the remaining time going,
Exactly. And that's just what the news does. I've never had that feeling talking about what we've been playing. So that's why I think we should start with It's Our Week.
Very well. But which of us shall go first? It'll be it's always
Good
me.
one, Lawrence. Good one. So what you been doing this week?
Tyranny is complete.
Oh, you did it!
I finished Tyranny.
Well done.
And I realized as I came into the third act of this game why it was that this game was as comparatively short as it was compared to Pillars of Eternity and other CRPGs of its ilk.
Okay.
And that is because this game, I don't want to say expects you to, that's not the right word. It encourages you to replay it. This is meant to be a replayable game, very easily replayable.
Very easily replayable. That's a key point.
Well, by CRPG standards. Yeah. I mean, it's 45 hours long. Most CRPGs are like 100 hours long. So if you were to play this game twice but make different choices, you would be getting more of a complete experience.
And so what dawned on you on this? Did you realize you got to the end and realized this could have worked out entirely differently?
I think it was more that by that point in the game I had gotten the feel for the grooves that you're meant to run through on the way to the end. And I was like, oh, I could have done this here, and I could have done this here, and it would have been a completely different play session. And then all the choices that you make all sort of funnel into a central point at the end of the game. And I was like, okay, I see now.
Okay, well, maybe this is where Obsidian's design philosophy has kind of shifted a little bit in recent times when they've been working on games like The Outer Worlds, and why I've had so much to compare to Tyranny with The Outer Worlds is because they've kind of tried to bridge the gap a little bit more than even we realized in the moment, was that they were trying to essentially combine what they did for Fallout New Vegas, in which you could play an entirely different character set with an entirely different outcome compared to most CRPGs, which is, it's a long-winded story. There are lots of things to do, but generally, up until the very end, it's very much a linear progression.
My data points for Obsidian are KOTOR 2, Pillars of Eternity, and Tyranny. So I'm not really in a position to make any kind of speculation as to their storytelling strategy or how it has shifted over time. I will say this is something that could only really work with a game of this length, because there's no way on hell that anyone's going to be replaying a game that's 100 hours long.
Of course.
To give you a more tangible idea of what I'm talking about here, I mentioned last week about how I had come to favor the disfavored faction, which are the pseudo-Roman Legion faction, as opposed to the Scarlet Chorus, which were more the undisciplined horde. Yes, the War Boys. As it turns out, there are four main story paths that you can take in order when playing this game. One is to do what I have done with the disfavored. The other is to side primarily with the Scarlet Chorus. The third is to side with the rebels and try to unite all the battling factions of rebels under one banner, which I didn't do because why would you? And the fourth is perhaps the one that I was most likely to go for had I not went for the one I currently did, which is what the game describes as the anarchist route, where you spurn both factions and just go your own way.
The I can't be bothered to engage with what's happening route.
More like the I can't stand these people, they're fucking incompetent, I don't want to have to deal with them, I'm just going to do my own thing and then kick their asses later. Here's where I'm going to try and keep this not too spoilerific, because you might play this at some point and maybe the listener might be titillated enough to play it themselves.
Yeah, certainly.
So the main structure of the story is that Act 1, you arrive, you proclaim the edict that says, everyone get your shit together within 8 days or you're all gonna die. And Act 1 ends with you choosing a side and them breaking through to the other side. At which point the edict is resolved, something that very rarely happens and you're considered to be very noteworthy for having done it. And the war between the two factions breaks out, and you're tasked with investigating the people in charge, the Archons, as well as quashing rebellion in various parts of the continent. Cue Act 2. Act 2. You go through the various parts of the country. Depending on which faction you sided with, you will be working with them in order to quell rebellion in whatever way that faction deems appropriate. Until you do all of this and the conflict comes to a head and you must take the fight to the other faction in order to defeat them in favor of your faction. And then Act 3 stuff happens. Spoilers. You will be called to court under Tunon.
Yes, as you alluded last week.
Yes, Tunon will say to you, alright, now you must justify the actions that you took in order to achieve your objectives. And is there anything that you would like to bring to the court's attention regarding the two Archons, at which point, depending on how much evidence you have, you can stitch them
idiots.
up. Yeah, you can stitch them up. Although I have to say, I disagreed very thoroughly with the way that this question is posed to you. Tunon says to you, which of the Archons do you believe to be the most guilty? You have 3 options. One is Graven Ash, head of the disfavored, is the most guilty, or the most guilty of causing dissent and sedition and whatnot.
Sure, yeah.
The Voices of Narat, the head of the Scarlet Chorus, he is the most guilty. And the third one is, they are both equally at fault. And this is where I ran into trouble, because whilst I do believe them to be both incompetent or untrustworthy in their own ways, one of them is very, very worse than the other.
Okay.
Like, the Voices Narat is a psycho who cannot be trusted in any capacity whatsoever, and he's sufficiently powerful enough for him to be a serious threat to just about everybody. Whilst Graven Ash is just kind of incompetent sometimes, and is a little bit racist, and I have evidence that he's up to no good, but that's it.
So it's not a very deep question.
No, there's no fourth option that says, both of them, but one of them worse than the other. Now, I said last week that I didn't really know where the plot was going, but now that I've completed it, I have a better hindsight idea of what they were going for and how it was meant to pan out.
Okay.
I think it was mostly my trouble was understanding the way that the Kairos hierarchy was supposed to work, because Kairos is very loosey-goosey with how internal politics is sorted out. And it very frequently resulted in situations where I was asking myself, is what I'm doing sanctioned? Is this okay? Is what I'm doing okay? Because
so you were kind of tiptoeing around decisions in case Kairos came down on you for just doing what you thought was your job.
This is one thing that I can level against the game, one serious criticism, and that is, it doesn't happen often. I didn't feel it often, I should say, but there are some definite moments of railroading in the second act of this game. Railroading, for those who don't know, is in interactive storytelling mediums, is where the game forces you to go down a certain story path, even though it would be contrary to your own wishes or the wishes of the character that you're playing. So you're effectively being stuck down a track that only goes in one direction. That's railroading. Because I had thrown my lot in with the disfavored, there's a certain assumption that I agree with what those people are doing, but I'm not really. Now, you can offer some token resistance, where, like, to give a minor spoiler, in the third country, there's an edict that's constantly causing earthquakes. This is also the home headquarters of the Scarlet Chorus. So the disfavored get to the quote-unquote corpse of the Archon of Stone, which is, like, still hanging in there. He's, like, comatose. That's like, this is the Archon of Stone. He's really powerful. We could reverse the polarity, yada yada yada, technobabble, in order to kill him end the edict, but permanently blight this land in order to starve out the Scarlet Chorus and spite the voices in the rat, and it could be very helpful in defeating them. And I'm like, no, that's a stupid plan.
Seems like a drastic overact.
That seems like a vastly short-sighted plan, considering the whole point of this conquest was to annex these lands, and now you're going to blight them forever. That seems really unwise. And you can bring this up with Graven Ash, where if you have a high enough favor with him, he'll be like, what do you think of this plan? And you'll go, this is not a very good plan. It's very short-sighted. And he'll be like, I've taken your things into consideration. I have elected to do it anyway. Go ahead with it.
What?
At which point, you'll have no choice but, if you're on this quest line...
Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it, and you can grumble about it, but you'll still do it. And then,
wasting valuable fucking hours of your
resources,
life.
Yes. And, the game does offer breakpoints for you to go, fuck this, I'm not hanging out with you guys anymore, I'm going to break an alliance with you. If I had known from the outset that there was 4 main threads that you could take in order to get to the end of the story, I would have probably broken an alliance with them before. But every time the option of, get out of here, I'm in charge now, break alliance, was available, I always assumed that was the treason route, where you were effectively openly define the way of Kairos.
I think I would be very, very similar in this approach. I'd be absolutely panicking. Can I say no and not get smote?
I was like, well, I don't want to defy Kairos, not because I think that you'll smite me. I do generally like the regime, because, hey...
That's not a good...
It's not a great opinion to have, but
bad soundbite.
But,
First soundbite.
Yeah, that'll come back to bite me for my political career in about 10 years' time.
Yeah, definitely.
In any case, it's the Bronze Age, and Kairos, whilst dictatorial, his or her laws are not all that unfair for the time period. They're pretty fair for their time. They're pretty fucking egalitarian for the time. And it's just, it's because you're in the middle of the conquest, which is the unseemly part, that things look bad. But Kairos, they seem alright in my book. In any case, I didn't want to, either because it was in character, and because I didn't want to get smote, I didn't want to defy Kairos. I wanted to just be a good, impartial public servant to the Kairos administration. So yeah, every time the option to betray alliance, I assumed it was the Kairos alliance and not with the disfavored. So you never know quite where you stand, Kairos-wise. Only his proxies, and they have their own agendas. So you can never be quite sure, is this okay? Is this kosher? You can never be completely confident. All you can do is just make your choices and then try to justify them to Tunon later on. However, whilst I was grumbling to myself about how this is bullshit, this guy isn't my boss, fuck this guy. The third act, I'm going to speak in very broad terms here, does a lot in order to ameliorate my feel bad regarding this decision. Because things escalate, and because it's a very choose your own, you can choose, I will fight against these people, I will work with these people, yada yada yada. So I'm quite happy with the way the things turned out in the end for me, which is why I'm not all that inclined to replay it. Not merely because of, it wouldn't really be great for the podcast, but I'm actually quite happy with where my character ended up and how the story ended for me. Now, I teased at it earlier with Kairos. We sort of whiff-waffled about regarding Kairos' gender.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like the way that the game goes about doing this, because most people either say the Conqueror or Kairos or the Overlord and speak of Kairos in those terms. Occasionally you'll have a few characters say, Kairos, when he came to this place, he did this, because male is kind of the assumed default gender for, globetrotting evil overlords. But later on, you get a character who's a lot older, who you only really speak to over the course of missives that you send through carrier pigeon, like an old Fatebinder who's retired, who uses female pronouns. And you're like, here we go. Kairos must be a woman then, right? So then you, at another point, meet an Archon called Siren, the Archon of Song, and she's actually met Kairos, and she starts speaking about Kairos in feminine terms, and you're like, fine. And then the very next sentence starts using male pronouns.
Ooh, excellent.
So like she's flip-flopping between saying him and her, she, he, etc., etc. And you're like, oh, okay, game, come on, go on. So you say to her, steady on there, Siren. You just used masculine and feminine pronouns. What gives? What's the deal? And Siren just turns to you and goes, well, you're her fatebinder, right? You've met her, haven't you? Oh, you haven't? Oh, so you don't know?
Oh.
I guess I'll just keep mum in order to preserve the secret. And you're like, fine. Alright.
Maybe it's so it's been made ambiguous purpose. Maybe it's like a Dorman kind of deal, you know?
It could be a Dorman kind of deal. In fact, when you speak to Tunon later in the game, he also speaks of Kairos in multi-gender terms, and you can ask him about it, and he will very icily say to you, Kairos is above such petty dualities.
Great.
You're like, all right, well,
cool.
That's good. Yeah, neat. Hell, Kairos.
Anything else for this week, Lawrence?
Oh, yes, one last thing. University started up again, so
shit.
Don't worry about it. There'll be I'm going to be doing a lot of project work over the course of the next few months. However, this means that I will be shifting my Vectormen playtime from long-form entertainment, such as multi-dozen-hour long CRPGs, to more short-form entertainment, which I think should result in a more diverse amount of content coming from my week.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially, I have to thank you, Lee, of course, for my birthday buying me a couple of walking simulators that will make for very excellent break glass in case of emergency content.
Great.
At some point.
And of course we've got the racial equality bundle, which we've been holding on to for months and months and months.
Oh,
yeah. I only remember this week too.
Mm-hmm.
From listening to older content on Vectormen Live. That's twitch.tv/Vectormen. Jesus.
Oh, one last aside. Well, I say one last aside, I don't know. Maybe it'll be the first of many more.
Yeah, exactly.
Lee mentioned earlier how Halloween is coming up.
Yes.
I may play Amnesia Machine for Pigs during October at some point.
You did mention this in the previous podcast, I believe.
I don't think I committed to it, but I'm committing to it now.
Good. Yes, because I've already told people on Twitch you would do it.
Oh, well, how serendipitous then.
I said, okay, so I've started playing Resident Evil. Therefore, Lawrence must commit to playing Amnesia, a Machine for Pigs.
Well, that's fine. I was going to do it anyway. I'm not doing it because you told me to.
No, Kairos told us both.
Oh, yeah. Kairos proclaimed an edict that Lawrence must play Amnesia Machine for Pigs by the end of October, or we'll all be blown up.
Well, better get on it.
Hail Kairos.
My week, I've got 2 cubbyholes. Let's start with Dark Souls Cubbyhole. Why not?
Hooray!
Here we are. It took 3 full sessions, but I've done it. I'm through Sans Funhouse.
Hooray!
Yes.
Did you beat the golem?
The Iron Golem. Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. And I did it in one go.
Very well done.
Which is a fucking miracle, because I ran out of Estus just as I pushed through the fucking white fog.
Did you summon Black Iron Tarkus?
I have no idea what you're talking about, so I'm going to say no.
Alright, so if you're human while you go through the level...
Never.
Right? Well, you should consider doing that sometimes, because right before the boss battle, there's usually a lot of summon signs to help you summon help with the boss battle.
Okay,
This will either be other players, or it'll be NPCs that have been placed there.
That makes sense.
One of these NPCs, the NPC for right before the Iron Golem, is a guy called Black Iron Tarkus. Black Iron Tarkus has taken on mimetic status amongst the Dark Souls fandom because he can kill the boss for you.
Oh.
There is a very real chance, in fact I would say that it's about 40% chance, that if you summon Black Iron Tarkus and lead him into the arena with the Iron Golem, and then just, kick back, relax, have a drink, he'll probably have it sorted for you. In fact, he may push the Golem off the arena to its death.
Ooh.
Black Iron Tarkus is a stone cold badass.
That's excellent to hear. Only slightly mired by the fact that I did it myself, meaning that an absolute moron can beat the Iron Golem.
Yes, I didn't want to say, but he is considered quite easy, generally speaking, in the tier list.
Let me once again iterate that I had no Estus Flask going into this fight, and I still beat him. So, and especially since you've been fighting sort of giants the whole way through the Funhouse, you're pretty much already aware of what he can do and how he can move. So there's not a lot to it. There's not much different from the guys chucking the bombs.
Have the treasure chests been treating you well?
I only had one death by Mimic. Is that what they're called?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're mimics.
And that was...
It made an impression, didn't it?
Yeah, it was entertaining, certainly. But then I came back, and when I ended up in that area, I was like, that's the guy. Beat his ass and took what was in him.
There are ways to discern a mimic from a regular treasure chest on site, but I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'll let you figure them out.
I feel like you might be able to lock on.
No, you can't lock on the mimics.
Ooh, okay.
Not while they're hidden, anyway.
I want to explain my stress in the next portion of Dark Souls, which was going to the land of Anor Londo.
Oh, yeah.
My stress was I beat this boss, and instead of having the opportunity to, I don't know, get to some sort of bonfire and recuperate, I was immediately picked up by demons and dragged somewhere else.
You were sequestered away to a magical land.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was a miracle I had survived long enough to actually beat the boss of Sen's Funhouse to deserve some sort of relief, because I never found the bonfire in the Funhouse. So this was all I had. This was everything I had was going into this victory.
So many souls.
Exactly. Especially since, when he dies, he gives you like 40,000 souls or something like that. So the stress mounted to exponential levels, and these demons, I was on so little health, I thought that the cutscene that dropped me onto the platform of Anor Londo would kill me, just from fall damage.
Oh, you're sitting on that magic pixel.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh my god, can I die in a cutscene? Which I wouldn't put past Dark Souls. I survived. So the next panic was, where the fuck am I? How do I find a bonfire? There's gotta be one. There's a whole new place. I can't even go back easily. There's gotta be a bonfire.
Did you source a bonfire?
I did find a bonfire. I found the bonfire. And I found it before dying, but it was not without its stress, because the moment that you enter, the first thing you see in Anor Londo, besides a gorgeous view of a cathedral city sprawling into the distance, is a giant golem-like character at the foot of the steps, who, as I later found out, you could awake and could beat you to death very easily. But I was so cautious walking around them and the several other iterations of them just hanging around the same rooms that I didn't...
Terrified to touch anything.
Exactly, that I didn't stir any of them. But
that's the real Dark Souls experience, if you ask me. Low on health, you don't know where the next bonfire is, don't touch anything.
Exactly. What's worse is that the bonfire in this area is one of 4 directions. I took the opposite direction at first, and landed in a sort of area with a lot of precariousness involved, and a gargoyle staring me in the face. And, the panic sets in. You're like, they wouldn't put the bonfire behind the gargoyle, would they? They wouldn't do this as one last kick in the teeth. But no, they didn't, mercifully. I can confirm for anybody who's afraid in this particular scenario that one of the other 4 directions has the bonfire. Just figure it out. But
did you get there without losing any souls?
I got there without losing any souls.
Ah, delightful.
The relief.
I couldn't move on until you had answered that question.
yeah, the tension. Such wild empathy.
That's my problem, Lee. I just care too much.
So anyway, so having made it to my new beautiful Firekeeper bonfire.
With a new beautiful Firekeeper.
With a new beautiful Firekeeper, absolutely. I am at home at Anor Londo. I've been making my way through it. I haven't played much further. I beat the gargoyle. I inevitably worked out where the fuck to go after that, because it looks like a cold-ass dead end. It's not a cold-ass dead end, not to give it away, but look around. You might just find a sign from a friend.
Look around and you may in fact find that somebody has told you the answer.
Exactly, that's the beauty of Dark Souls. That's the whole idea. Somebody has figured this out first. Follow their intuition. What beautiful trailblazers they are. So I climbed into a church. I was attacked by the KKK, and kicked some of their asses, perilously made my way through the rafters, fought some devil boys, devil men crybabies.
Of course.
And basically didn't make it much further than that because I got harpooned by people off screen.
Yeah. You have reached quite possibly my favorite part of this game that isn't the boss, and it's the Anor Londo archers.
Oh, yeah?
The Anor Londo archers are mimetic in their unassailability and complete disregard for any of the conventions of war whatsoever. They are bullshit. Like, if the rest of the game was like these two knights, just two knights have strategically placed themselves in such a way to be as much of an inconvenience as possible. Mm-hmm. If the rest of the game was like this, it would be impossible. It would be intolerable. Nobody would like this game. But because it's just these two guys in this one very specific spot, and once you get past them, you never have to worry about them again, it has become legend, these two guys.
That makes a lot of sense, because I thought, hanging around in the same area, I thought they would let up at some point. They do not fucking let up.
No. Foolishly.
I guess you're indoctrinated by the dark guys in Blighttown. They're assholes. They're constant, but you can work out a rhythm. You can't work out a rhythm with these guys. There's no rhythm. They're relentless.
There is a rhythm, but there are some tricks to it. There's like one too many tricks to getting past these guys. If you know the trick, you can do it, but there's one too many tricks.
Okay.
Like, what weapon are you using? Is it a big one?
No, it's not. It's
good, because quite possibly the most humiliating way to die in this game is to run up to the one on the right and swing your big weapon, and because of the way that the geometry of like the architecture, your weapon hits the building, not the guy, and you bounce right off into oblivion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, your weapon can bounce off the building, and you can just fall to your death, and it is the most embarrassing thing in the world.
This is a very recent thing I've just come over. This actually happened on stream, when I was making my way through Sen's Funhouse. I finally have ditched my starting weapon, which up until now had done me quite a distance, and it is still quite good.
Serviceable.
I have the scimitar, which is a very, very decent weapon, I think. It's very versatile. And very easy to level up in terms of damage as well. So it's been quite good. I even made it a magic scimitar for a while until I realized that it kind of actually hurt its stats, so I just put it back to normal scimitar. But when in Sen's Funhouse, I finally found a weapon that was an overall buff, which was a lightning spear.
Ah, yes, okay.
And you know what? I was kind of hesitant to adopt this, because I at this point, you're so far into the game, you've grown attached to your weapon. Yeah, exactly. You feel like the part of the game involves you beating the entire thing with the scimitar. You've been on such a journey. But ultimately, there was one major factor, aside from a slight damage increase from this lightning sphere, and that came in the fact that I collided less off geometry.
Oh yeah,
the scimitar is a very whooshy, swishy weapon.
That's the appeal of spears. Thrust weapons, you just go straight forward.
Exactly.
You don't have to bounce off the walls. That's their biggest strength, and especially if you have a shield and like a thrust weapon, you're sorted. Yeah. Because with spears, you can attack whilst holding your shield up.
Exactly. That was the other thing I was afraid wouldn't happen. It's like, spears in my head are two-handed weapons. Can I really get away with just poking people to death? Yes, I can.
Absolutely.
And I can block. I can repartee. I mean, this is wonderful. But especially in Sen's Funhouse, right? Because there's loads of little sections where you come up to say these serpent men who are kind of like lightning chuckers.
Mm-hmm. Tactfully put.
Yeah. And what happens is, at least the first one, and even a couple of them, you often meet in doorways. And what happens is, you swing, you can maybe get one or two hits on them, but the third hit, you're always going to hit the fucking wall. And so you need to tactically sort of stop yourself from trying to go for that 3 combo, then go in. Not a problem with the fucking spear, though. 1, 2, 3, straight for the door. Guy's dead. Problem solved. Move on with your fucking life. Don't get hung up on baby bosses. They're not even bosses. They're just actual general rabble. So, getting over that point, wonderful, splendid, and I can't speak higher of the lightning spear. So I finally got over that, and that turned out to be a blessing because now I'm at... this comes over at one of the other problems with the fucking scimitar, is that it's very easy to perform a combo where you basically backflip. Scimitar is a weapon that kind of has a lot of little intricate moves involved. That's
a dex weapon for you.
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's my character load, so this makes a lot of sense. It's kind of the poison I chose was that I would be a flexible boy. But the scimitar, I've never really truly understood exactly what button press makes me do this, but it's very easy to just 1, 2, and then instead of doing 3, backflip away and off of something. And this could have been a nightmare. This has been a nightmare, especially in Sense Funhouse, but on a couple of other occasions where I'd be on tiny narrow bridges and be facing just the wrong direction and already panicking. I'm not facing directly straight, I'm slightly diagonal. And it's a 1, 2, and a backflip to my death.
But you look really cool doing it, right?
Oh yeah, badass. But
I'm sure the serpents were very impressed.
Whoa! Yeah, exactly. They cross their arms, their head flies up, like, man, that guy, so cool. Yeah, so this has been a mercy because in Anor Londo you spend a little more time than usual in rafters. And you do not want to be backflipping or making any animation that could in any way move you from your desired spot. And spears couldn't be more useful in this scenario because you don't move, you just poke. It's beautiful.
What's your roll like? You doing a fat roll or a quick roll or what?
I'm very dexterous.
Are you wearing heavy armor?
Oh no, I'm light armor.
You've got a skinny roll then.
I've started slowly putting more points into strength, only for the sheer fact that I was picking up weapons that I basically should have been wielding by this point and haven't been able to because I just ignored the stat.
That's what I like to do. I can't remember which one. Is it strength or... No, it's endurance? Whichever the one is that you pump in order to increase your equipment load.
Yes, that's endurance.
Because the higher your equipment load, the heavier weapons and armor you can equip without impacting your ability to roll correctly.
That's right.
I think it's 50% is the threshold.
Yeah. My endurance is pretty decent, but at the same time, it's not... I've literally put it all into the dexterity stat. So I am doing good damage on fast weapons, and I've got a slight ability to wear like medium armor or have super light armor with one heavy item. But I can't go full heavy or even full medium and keep my ruled speed.
That's always my first priority when I'm leveling up, which is I want to be able to wear what I want. Pop that stat.
Yeah, that's I realized that halfway through this, sort of the halfway point of where I am at now, where I realized that I could put it all into endurance and start wearing basically all this shit I've picked up. But I feel I had basically a choice where I could put it all into endurance at this point, or I could put it into strength to get slightly heavier weapons, not armor. I was happy enough in my role. I didn't really care much about the armor. I like my light armor. It's pretty good. It's not terrible. You know, I've got a stone helmet and a bunch of fucking robes. I look like a fucking weirdo, but it's fine. But I had picked up pretty nice weapons that were also fairly light, and I still couldn't wield them. And I was kind of getting irritated by that. So just a little bit of effort into the strength stats, and I'm good. I feel like I'm at a good place. I'm at level 60 now as my character. So I mean, which I feel like is still slightly overpowered for the area I'm in.
We shall see about that.
Yeah, yet to be determined. I mean, what I found out our cult, the Sentinels, are our big our big bouncer boys in Anor Londo. They can still clean me out in like 2 or 3 hits, so yeah, it's hard to say really.
Yeah.
But that's basically where I'm at.
Anor Londo. Pretty, isn't it, huh?
Oh man, it's gorgeous. Oh, that's the one thing I forgot to bring up specifically about Anor Londo. Remember, I think maybe episode 3 or 4, when I was kind of dipping in and out on whether I'm going to play Dark Souls, and I said I had seen footage from my friend Andy Clark that was a little later on in the game, and inspired me to really stick with this and continue the cubbyhole.
I suspected that it would be Anor Londo. It makes an impression, huh?
It sure does. It sure does. And that's exactly what it was. So I actually feel like I've achieved what was my biggest goal going into this, which was to just get this far. What's good is, by the time I made it to this point, I'm by no means done with Dark Souls. I'm very excited to see what the fuck is next. And I was advised by Andy Clark at this point that Anor Londo was kind of a midpoint. It wasn't a spoiler in his words. Which, I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree for the simple fact that I needed that to continue with this experience.
You needed that carrot.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got the carrot, and now by this point I've already established that there are at least 20 more carrots more that I want to see. And that, therefore, makes it a solid argument for having generally some sort of carrot. And I mean, usually, in the case of people who were into Dark Souls in the first wave, I'm going to say that they either seen a trailer that was like, oh, there's a lot of cool shit in this, and I never saw any of that, or they were part of the first wave of people playing the game, and therefore, there was a big communal push, and the memes caught them over. I missed all of this. I missed the entire big push to Dark Souls, and so it took a lot to explain to me why I should keep playing, and just in sort of aesthetic terms. What was in it for me as a person who had no basis of what the hell even enjoying a game that was difficult meant. Why should I play? And the next best route I've found is there's cool shit to look at. And Anor Londo, that's cool shit to look at.
So it's one of those unfortunate situations where it's cool and you should keep playing and there's great stuff later on, but I can't tell you about it.
Yeah.
Where the carrot is obfuscated, which is fine if you're someone like me who knows that the carrot's going to be there so you can enjoy it as it comes. But if you need motivation to continue, that can be very frustrating. Just get a picture of some cool shit and point at it and go, look at this cool shit.
Exactly.
And if they go, damn, that's some cool shit, you've got them. You're in.
Moving on to cubbyhole number 2. We're back at The Witcher. That's right. Witcher cubbyhole number 2. This is the second Witcher cubbyhole. We're still doing the Witcher cubbyhole.
I'm glad, because in my show notes I've had the phrase, Witcher? I barely even know her, sitting there for weeks, with no opportunity to use it whatsoever, and what I can only assume is the oldest joke in the English language regarding this franchise that there is.
Well, I'm still playing The Witcher. I'm actually really enjoying it.
I'm sure you are.
40 gold for sex pictures? Yeah, I'm in.
I know. What a ripoff in this day and age.
It's not exactly what I call a deep game, now that I'm a little further in. Like all RPGs, it's a little dense at first. And because it's an older game, it's also, got that unintuitive jank from the earlier years, the lesser years. The classic years.
The Dark Ages, if you like.
Yeah, that makes more sense. But if you've dabbled in anything from, I don't know, RuneScape to Neverwinter Nights, you probably know. You know the score. One thing that does stand out to me, though, which is dragging out the experience, is the complete lack of fast travel. But,
okay.
To be honest, I wouldn't call it a negative.
Does it allow you to get more immersed in the world, having to travel long distances?
That's right, Lawrence. Look, I mean, you give me fast travel, and I'm at this point, most games will. I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, if there's convenience and quality of life convenience, if that's the right phrase, then you're gonna use it. Even if it does have some kind of nebulous attribute or some nebulous quality that's being taken away from the game as a result of it, you're still gonna use it because, what are you gonna do? Just waste all that time walking? No way.
Exactly. And The Witcher is the kind of game that if it had fast travel, I would use it and use it unsparingly. Because almost all its quests are kind of walking around. Currently, right, I'm in chapter 2, and that puts me in the town of Fizima. And this entire chapter is about basically solving a murder mystery kind of sort of,
Ooh.
a little bit. Which means you're actively given quest lines that are just verifying whether certain characters are as guilty as you think they are. And writing off suspects as, are you guilty? Are you not? And that means just branching out into a bunch of mini walking around the town quests to talk to people or find evidence just to basically write people off as either guilty, involved, or totally innocent, wrong time, wrong place.
All right.
Or somewhere in between. What this entails, gameplay-wise, is essentially walking from A to B on the map constantly. You walk out of a place, you're just walking to more places, and you're around this town. And this town, it is condensed, I guess. You know, like, there are about 20 active buildings in it, and I wouldn't say it's like a fucking
sprawling metropolis.
Yeah, exactly. It's closer to like Whiterun in Skyrim, if you know what I mean. There's kind of a couple of tiers to it, and there are a bunch of active buildings. Basically, it's not unreasonable to be thinking, I need to walk from A to B in this place. It doesn't feel like every time you're doing something like, oh, that's a mile away, it's going to take forever, I'll pick something else. Every time you're like, that's perfectly acceptable. It's just going to take 2 minutes of my life. But you do this for almost every single bit of every single quest, and there are about 10 active quests in the town, and 4 of which are required to be solved before moving on, I believe.
See, this is where the brainworms start to make their presence known. Because I'd be like, I have Professor Layton in the back of my head going, what's the most efficient route that you could take to get through this town and do all these quests?
Right.
Oh, boy, gee whiz, I don't know, Professor, let's find out. And I spent 10 minutes just worrying about that.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think in most cases we are inclined to do the same when we don't have fast travel. Just think of every time you played Ocarina of Time, for example. You roll your way through the town. It's not diegetic, it doesn't make any sense in the world, but you're rolling your way through the place, and you're also cutting corners and figuring out the fastest staircases and the fastest jump routes just to get from A to B so that you don't have to fuck around and just potter your way through the crowds.
Oh, I don't even mean that. I mean, I'm looking at the quest list going, this is in this house, and this is in this house, and this is in this house. What order should I do these in relative to where I am right now in order to save the amount of walking as possible?
I agree. The best way to do this is to figure out how to roll figuratively, which is to figure out which quests are closer to your position that could be solved before moving from building to building. It's still a heck of a lot of trekking around.
Heck, a lot of trekking.
A heck of a lot of trekking. But as you alluded, I'm also totally on board with this. I feel like The Witcher has reminded me that there are games that could probably benefit from not having fast travel.
It's all part of the immersion.
Absolutely, and I mean
the game's tourism, if you like.
Sure,
said Lawrence, stepping on dangerous territory.
Don't do this, Lawrence. Aside from immersion, we're busy people.
Yeah.
In general, we've
got places to be.
We've got places to be. We've got stuff going on, and also we run a podcast.
Metaphorically speaking.
Sure. I think most tangibly for the viewers' sake, and if they don't want to get too deep into our living lives, we have to do this podcast, which means that, we don't like going into a whole week without any new content, anything that doesn't feel fresh in our own brains.
Yeah, there's a sword of Damocles hanging over our head at any given time when we're just trying to enjoy some.
Yeah, and it's imagined because we don't have viewers, listeners.
Yes, this is a burden that we bear for you, purely hypothetical listener. Yeah.
We're perfectionists in the sense that we imagine people are holding us up to some sort of standard.
Consummate professionalism here at Vectormen. Here at Vectormen.
It's important, I believe, to actually experience certain games, to ignore that factor and actually delve deeper into these kind of things. And if you give us fast travel, we're going to use it. But if there's the potential to actually just enrich our experience by engaging in the world, it's just all the better that you don't give us that option to just skip fast waves of it.
That was a complaint that a lot of the old guard of the Elder Scrolls series had when they made the jump to Oblivion, and especially to Skyrim. A lot of the old Morrowind players said that there was a fast travel system in Morrowind, but it was only it was very restricted. You had it was like Hollow Knight, where you got onto these giant bugs in like a train station system that would take you from very specific places to another. But aside from that, you had the Truckin.
Yeah.
There was a heck of a lot of Truckin.
Absolutely.
Fast forward to Oblivion, and particularly Skyrim, where fast travel is just a matter of, have you been there yet? Okay, boop.
Yeah.
A lot of the sense of scope of the landscape, the sense of journey has been lost. There was a lot of think pieces written up about this back when Skyrim first came out.
I mean, there's been no end of it. I actually did a cursory search before starting this week's podcast, and people are still writing about the fact that fast travel is a blight on modern video game design. And I wouldn't say that much. I kind of feel sort of half and half about Skyrim, for example, because the truth is that fast travel is necessary because there's not a lot of interesting things in that world. That's bad design. I agree.
Yeah.
But you have to have that fast travel to skip that bad design. And, I mean, a good example in this case, right, which also is bad because it's in there, is Assassin's Creed in general. The fast travel system, like, I don't remember anything really about the details of the Assassin's Creed worlds of the games I've played, because fast travel is, you could say it's kind of doing the Hollow Knight thing where it's very specific points. Yeah, it's not really, though. Like, those towns have nothing in them. Absolutely
no.
Nothing.
I think that's just because of the copy and paste. Well, I don't even think it's fair to say copy and paste, but the sameness of each town. Like, I mean, in Assassin's Creed 2, for instance, you can tell the difference between Florence and Venice and, let's see, what was the other one? It was Forlì, I think.
Sure.
And Tuscany as well. Each of those towns have their own individual flavor. But, if you're on one side of Venice, or if you're on the other side of Venice, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
There's no distinguishing, features in the cities themselves.
Another game that kind of feels like it uses fast travel in the wrong way to me in my head was Metal Gear Solid 5. Only because they made a world too big and with little to fuck all in it.
Metal Gear Solid 5 had two forms of fast travel, if you'll recall. There was the get into your helicopter and then go to a loading screen, then you're in your helicopter menu, and then go into a loading screen, and then take the really long, arduous, alright, let's get out the helicopter animation while we load in the world, and then you get out.
Uh-huh.
And then there was the delivery points. Scattered throughout the map, there was little, at bases, there were little orange drop-off points for deliveries that had a little receipt next to them.
Uh-huh.
And if you ripped the receipt off and then got into a box and waited a few seconds, a prompt would come up. And then you get this whole circle, and then it would allow you to fast travel to any of the previously accessed delivery points, which was a much more convenient way to get around, I found. It's just that they weren't quite as immediately accessible as the helicopter.
Well, yeah, maybe I'm overstepping it, because Metal Gear Solid 5 was a last-minute addition to this list, now that I'm thinking about it, because it does make fast travel deeply unpleasant.
Yeah, the amount of getting into your helicopter and pulling away, or loading the area in your helicopter and getting out, that was quite arduous. It wasn't until I discovered about 2/3 of the way in that you could just go straight to your helicopter menu by pausing the game and then going to ACC, which just takes you directly there. And I was like, well, that was a lot of wasted time.
So, I think you're right, and with Metal Gear Solid 5, that was the mistake of a last-minute addition, because that is exactly what I'm trying to argue for, which is fast travel that's slightly tedious. For example, a game that I really love the fast travel of is the Yakuza series. The Yakuza games have fast travel, but it's very minimal. So it's you're in whatever that town's called, Koichi.
Kamurocho?
Kamurocho, well remembered.
I don't even play the game.
Exactly. They're so infamous you don't have to, and yet if you play them, for some reason, if you have my brain, you don't even remember the fucking name of the place. There is a fast travel system. There are taxis, but they're at the very edge of the map, and they only take you to other edges of the map. And everything interesting or related to contents or stories are right in the middle of the map all the time. So
yeah, gotta sprint.
Exactly. So you can level up your sprinting and stuff like that. That's fine. But more importantly, if you were trying to get immediately to a point, very rarely will the taxis get you right there. What often the case is you only take the taxis when you're so far away from the point that it would benefit you to walk to the other end of the map to get a taxi that would get you slightly closer to the opposite end of the map.
It probably helps that that game has random encounters and sort of expects you to be walking around so that it can spring things on you.
Yeah. That system works fairly well. Another system I think works, that came to mind, and I thought was a slightly arbitrary fast travel system, but actually does do the job well, is the one in Red Dead Redemption. I'm not sure if you recall this, but
I do. There's like little like wagon wheels lying around that you can walk up to, and it'll take you to the towns.
Oh, well, yeah, sure. That's not what I'm actually talking about. That does make sense in terms of getting to focal points, and the same, I feel, is in Skyrim, that they decided to not use as the only way to fast travel, which is the carrier guy, the wagon guy. Same thing. He's outside every town, and he'll take you to the next town. And that's a good way to get around. But for some reason, they decided to double down and have him and fast travel to any location.
Oh yeah, that makes him completely redundant.
Exactly.
The only purpose that guy serves is you haven't made it to that town yet.
Yeah, right? So if
you
you're
use them once to get to the next town and then never again.
Which mercifully, I didn't know he was in the game until the second time I played it, because otherwise he would have ruined the game, right? Because you don't know where the towns are, and you don't want to know where the towns are. You want to find them.
The best parts of Skyrim is where somebody goes to you, yeah, you're going to need to go to Solitude, that's up north, right? And you've never been there before, so you're like, well, okay. And you follow this winding path, and you see these stunning vistas, and you're like, oh, this is nice. And you sort of get lost in a little adventure. And then you get there, and you're like, well, guess I'm here. That's all the towns. Guess I'll never get that experience again. It's just boop, 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 popping back and forth between the maps.
Yeah. I feel that's really depressing about Skyrim.
Let me ask you this. When was the last time you played a game and you're like, wow, this really feels like a living, breathing world that you could get lost in? Because for me it was Oblivion, and that was a long time ago.
That is a long time ago. Well, I was going to say, Obra Dinn is the last one that I feel like this world exists wholly and completely, and it requires nothing from me.
Well, no, I should clarify. I mean like like an open world. Like an open world that successfully created the illusion of being like a living, breathing place.
This is exactly why I'm bringing it up, because The Witcher is that world. The Witcher, the fact that it has no fast travel system is exactly why it's so memorable to me already, because I'm stuck in Vizima, right? Vizima is a dirty old town, which in any other game, I'm indoctrinated. I am ready to fast travel to every location because that gets the game done faster, surely, right? Mm-hmm. But by removing that option, that doesn't lessen my experience. And, like, it's the kind of thing, right, where you get so attached to the details of this town. And this is just one town in a long list of towns, where you start to notice the details, like the thought put into the architecture, the little details like constantly hovering crows, where you go from, your thoughts go from, God, this dirty town is super samey, to, by sheer blunt force of spending a lot of time there, you start to notice, seems the rats are late to get at this stray corpse. Someone must have died on the east side today. That kind of stuff.
You get to know the nuances.
Exactly. I feel The Witcher really, by having a good attention to detail, and by removing the option to skip that detail, you start to believe its world better. Mm-hmm. And I feel that really enhances the experience. And I'm not sure if this is going to hold up for the second and third game, because I have a feeling they probably have a little more modern design. Although, to be fair, I watched basically the speedrunner's version of Wild Hunt. Not that I took in any details of the story, because mercifully they skipped all of that, so that's good. And I didn't even really understand where the hell they were by the end of the game. So I not even that it was like scary from where they were. It just looked like the rest of how The Witcher feels. So that doesn't worry me. But I like that to really play it in speedrun. They basically had a slight exploit that made Geralt run like a fucking madman, but they didn't fast travel, and basically fast travel didn't factor in a lot into how they got that game to run as fast as it could, which makes me wonder, was
fast travel too slow? We must go fast. Speed. Yeah, I think for me it was it was definitely Oblivion. Because Oblivion was the first game where, I'd get busted for stealing something, and then I'd be basically chased out of town.
Yeah.
And the guards in that game, mimetically so, are known for being very dogged, shall we say.
Yes, absolutely.
So I ran out of town, I swam across a great lake.
You thought that would be enough.
I stared across the horizon at back at the town. I could see the guards, like, in their stupid swimming animation with their full plate mail still coming towards me. I was like, oh shit, better get out of here! And I just kept running, and I never felt quite safe. And then I later returned at that time, and there was a bounty on my head. I didn't know about the bounty system.
Sure.
So one of them went, wait a minute, it's you! You stole some items! And I was like, oh shit, they remember me! Oh my goodness!
Wow.
And
mind-blowing for the day.
it was mind-blowing. I was like, oh, they remember me! Oh shit, I'm in trouble! And then, the Benny Hill sequence would begin, where I'd be like, right, this Thieves Guild quest requires me to go to Breville, but that's no good. I'm a wanted man in Breville. So every time I would go to Breville, it would be a Benny Hill sequence would occur where guards would spot me, and I know, and they're not hostile yet because they haven't had the actual encounter where they say to you, "You're under arrest," at which point your options are submit or run away. Mm-hmm. But at that point they become hostile. But until they talk to you and say, "Hey, it's you. You're under arrest," they don't become hostile, but they still chase you. Mm-hmm. So this hilarious Benny Hill sequence occurs where, with my high acrobatics score, and I'm trying to game the geometry on the buildings where I never want to touch the ground because they'll get me. So, I'm running around town with them chasing me, but not hostile. Like just these unstoppable Terminators in full plate mail who I don't want to talk to, even though I could probably beat them because I don't want to fight them, and they'll just inconvenience me, going, "Stop, you violated the law." And you stealth around, you be as sneaky as you can because the game's actively encouraging you to be sneaky and stealthy. And then you run, you make a break for it, you get into the house that you're trying to get to talk to the quest giver, and you're like, fuck, and then you talk to the guy and you're like, right, I have to go back outside. And then you have to split out of town as quickly as you can, or if it's nighttime, try to sneak your way out. And I think that was the most immersed I've been in the game world.
Wow.
Up until that point or since.
Oblivion did have fast travel, didn't it, though?
It did, but
didn't make any fucking odds when you were in combat and or a wanted man within the city perimeters, right?
Yeah.
But that's the beauty, right? Like, a good fast travel system has limits.
But by Skyrim,
basically you can walk 50 meters from the nearest enemy and get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, and you can see, by Skyrim, like, I knew all the tricks. I could see the code behind the eyes of every NPC, especially because, a lot of the quests in Skyrim were just some variation of talk to quest giver, go to cave, fight Droger, retrieve artifact, go back to quest giver, free shortcut that brings you back to the beginning of the cave. Quest completed. And that got very tiresome.
Yep. Not for me, because I sunk maybe 200 hours into that game, but I agree in general. In terms
Never beat it. Still haven't beat it.
One game, though, that I think damningly overuses fast travel is the one I've already spoken of, The Outer Worlds.
Oh, really?
That's a game that didn't need it. Those maps aren't massive. They're not Skyrim.
We have to consider we complain that there's fast travel because we think that it hurts the immersion, but you have to consider how much grief they're going to get for not including fast travel.
I
from
generally
other people.
agree, and that's why I make the case that limited fast travel, like in Red Dead Redemption's they had a campfire system where you could go back to where you were, but you can't jump to towns except for your carriage thing that you mentioned. Or Yakuza's taxi system gets you to the edge of town, but not straight to your destination. I think we can agree that a system to get around slightly faster is a good idea, but one that just lets you jump Skyrim style to places you've been, including your own ship at the very start of the world, is maybe a little much.
Nah, it takes a lot of the journey out.
Exactly. And the whole thing with the Outer Worlds is that you're supposed to feel like you're in this place that's hostile, and you can't just back out of it. You're always delving deeper and deeper into the unknown. And the fact that you can just teleport immediately back to your ship for safety and then move to somewhere else that's even safer, it kind of really defeats the experience a little bit. Like I said, opening this, busy people, you want to get on with a big old RPG. We want to talk about the Outer Worlds and not get lost in the fucking weeds a little bit. I understand that you want to do that, but to be fair,
you want to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I started the Outer Worlds before I realized there was this thorough a fast travel system. I played for the first big area without that, and I walked from A to B, and I really, really enjoyed that first part. And you probably can tell by the latter parts of those episodes when I started talking about the Outer Worlds and the latter part of the game that I kind of lost a little bit of my interest in it all. And that's because I went to the next bunch of planets and was immediately able to teleport from A to B without even one consideration for the struggle involved in getting from A to B. And I definitely feel that stole from the experience of what was very specifically a game about being a person who was a spacefaring adventurer who could do whatever the fuck they wanted, but they had to fight for it. You know, to be able to just teleport back to your ship at any given time, any sense of danger, actively undermined the experience, which is unfortunate. It didn't destroy the experience of the game. I still feel like, in general, I enjoyed it. But now playing The Witcher and having to walk from A to B and slowly earn my place in that world, I am definitely feeling that The Outer Worlds was a game that could have made fast travel a lot more limited.
It's because Real World has bits of drudgery in it.
Yep.
And if you want to create a world that you can get lost in, it needs to have drudgery in it.
You're right.
It's just that, you know, people don't like drudgery, but hey, that's how it is on this bitch of an earth. Yeah, that's right. Bring it back.
We're moving on to news. Okay. Do you have a jingle for us?
The news. The news. There you go.
It's pretty good. It's very tasteful.
Yeah, you can thank Miles Davis for that one.
What do you want to start with? Small news, big news?
Well, I suppose I've got a one that might not be in your list, which is Nier Replicant.
It is my list.
It's coming to PS4, Xbox One.
That's not the name of that game. Its name is Nier Replicant version 1.22474487139 ellipsis.
Oh yes, how could I forget about Yoko Tano's, shall we say, idiosyncratic approach to naming his expanded editions. So, this is perplexing, because I'm not entirely sure what this game is. I know what Nier is, and I know what Nier Replicant is. I know what Nier, what's the one, Gestalt is. But this... He's been very canny about this on Twitter. He says, forget what you know, or so forget the past, or everything you know, don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if this is a reference to the fact that this game is like a remix in the sort of Final Fantasy VII remix kind of way, or if it's meant to be just a remake, except they're not having old man Nier, they're using young man Nier.
Yeah. Which region was old man Nier? He was the western region, right?
He was the west. Papa Nier was west, and Nissan Nier was Japan, because of course.
I think that's so safe a bet that you can assume we're talking about Final Fantasy remix terms. I mean, like, think about it. This is the guy that literally makes games that just have endings upon endings. Like, it doesn't make sense for him to remake a whole game and to not even bother to overthink the material inherent.
But even so, like, for reasons that I cannot articulate because they are spoilerific to an extreme, him going, forget about the past, forget about Papa Nier, is like, it could mean literally fucking anything. This puts me in a terrible quandary.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I watched a Let's Play of the original Nier.
Oh my god.
Gestalt, and I was, I had been advised by the people who had played it that the story is great, but it doesn't play fantastic.
Yes.
It could be a lot better. So I was happy to simply watch the Let's Play and let that be, I'm happy to have watched it. I get it. I don't have to worry about playing the first one. Because I had been specifically advised. I got the story, and I had been advised, don't worry about the gameplay. And I was like, fine. That's fine. I can just go straight on to Automata once I'm finished working my way through, the Platinum back catalogue.
And then Yoko Taro says, got you! You thought it was easy, didn't you?
Yoko Taro goes, guess what, bitch? Here I come. Never mind that shit. Here comes Mongo. And now I'm trapped in this quandary of, okay, so which one do I play first? Do I play Automata first?
The answer
or
is
do
yes.
I play the new Nier Replicant first?
The answer is absolutely yes.
I'm just gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, I guess you're gonna have to hear the consensus from the community.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go to the subreddit and go, guys, don't say shit. Don't tell me a fucking thing. Just give me a number. First or last? Which one do I play, first or last? And I'll be like, this one. And I'm like, thank you, say no more, bye. And they'll have no problem with that because I'm probably the 50th person that week who had asked that question.
Yeah, I think we can safely assume you're gonna have to play all three. But, lucky you, you've already technically, mentally played Nier the original.
Yeah. Nier Gestalt, I have filed away under the experienced folder, so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Still, I mean, if they're remastering Nier Replicant and they fix the gameplay problems and they make it more akin to Automata, then that's hardly going to be a problem for me to play because that's a great game.
So I guess the concern here comes in, does Replicant unnecessarily yank stuff from Automata that only makes sense in some sort of post-Automata gameplay?
Yeah, what I'm afraid of is there some kind of awful Ouroboros that leads into the other that's designed specifically to...
The great brainworm that eats itself.
Yes, it's the great brainworm that eats itself. So it's like, which one do I play? Which one comes first? No. Each one of them feeds into the other, one glorious loop where there is no origin, and I'm like, oh no!
To see the squirm before the worm, it's beautiful.
The worm turns. The conqueror worm.
Yeah, so anyway, that's good news for me. I mean, terrible news for you. It's very confusing. Must be a whole ordeal.
I'm just gonna have to wait and see. That's simply how it is.
Lesser news also, but also related to our most popular tweet ever, somehow, to date, is Yakuza movie is in production.
Yes. Well, I've adopted the sensible approach to this, which is, it ain't real until I see a trailer. Until I see a trailer, this thing doesn't exist.
You knew it would happen. We both said it at the time.
Yeah, the incredibly overconfident Sega movie ident that they had before the Sonic movie, where they were basically pointing at the stands like Babe Ruth going, we're gonna hit a home run here, babe. Look at all this stuff here coming your way. All these slick IPs just ripe for movie adaptation. And we were like,
yeah, maybe Yakuza.
We'll see, hope we.
I think we were just happy to see Kazuma Kiryu's face in an actual movie. Like, this man's face is in DVDs in kids' homes across the globe. That's wonderful. But to think that this could potentially actually go somewhere, and that he actually might get a film adaptation that carries the same ident. I mean, that's pretty fascinating. But I think you're right. I think the sensible human being would say, I mean, there already is a Yakuza movie, Like a Dragon, I believe it's called. So this is not new for Yakuza, but given their dealings with the West and Sonic's success, they might be inclined for this next Yakuza film to be a little bit more accessible, let's say.
Oh, you don't want that. You don't have to be accessible.
I know, which defeats the
purpose, you want it to be as alienatingly Japanese as possible.
I know, which is what makes me think we might really get it. It just won't be very good.
Well, I mean, that's more or less what we would expect from the onset, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a safe bet. It's a very, very safe bet. All I've got left on my side is the big news. So if you've got any interim stories, hit me up.
For once, Lawrence is the harbinger of good news.
Oh. Well, that's exciting.
From the ashes of Lab Zero.
Oh,
rises a
I
glorious
did hear a little
Phoenix.
bit about this.
Future Club.
Is that what they ended up calling it?
The new studio is Future Club, and it is a worker-owned co-op, which means that the shares or the profit shares are shared out equally amongst the workers in a glorious workers' utopia.
Truly. This is something that I've heard a couple of studios, mostly French, have attempted in the past, is this profit share.
I have no frame of reference for this kind of company hierarchy. I don't know anything about it other than that other companies have done it and that it works.
Yeah.
And I would like to see more of them, if that is the case, because it sounds too good to be true.
Truly.
It sounds like the sort of half-brained like idea that like a student socialist club made up and tried, and it never really got off the ground.
Yes, no, this did make the news maybe a year or two ago that a prominent French studio, of which name escapes me, was trying out the same thing and was doing pretty well for itself. Last I heard, maybe it's totally in the bin at the moment.
I mean, maybe our point is undermined, and the reason why we can't remember is because it got shit canned like a month into the project.
Could be.
I guess we'll just have to see. I'm fairly optimistic. Future Club.
Very, very exciting news. I'm very glad that they didn't just drop it all together and go their separate ways. I think the band was a little too good for that.
Yeah, too much talent in one place.
Yeah.
And they already have an established working relationship. It'd be like, come on, everyone. I don't want to say saw it coming, but was sort of like secretly hoping that it would go that way. It's like, come on,
you can do it.
Do Lab 1,
Yeah.
And they've done Lab 1, but it's Future Club. I guess they didn't want to. They wanted to separate themselves completely from the taint. And just as I brought good news, it also brought bad news. Michel Ancel.
Okay, alright. This is technically follow-up, right?
Yes, it is. Now,
we were very, very cocky, weren't we?
we framed his retirement from Ubisoft last week as the retirement of the last of the DJs, the last of the OGs, one of the last good guys leaving the company to escape a toxic working environment. But that wasn't entirely the case. Now, rest assured, our standards may be low, but he didn't sexually assault anyone, so that's good.
That's very good.
No, he was merely your bog standard bad manager.
Yeah.
Crunch, toxic workplace, overtime, things like that. He was merely a bad manager who works his employees to the bone. That's all. That's all. At least according to a French magazine, which is about to release, or has already released by this point, a expose on the matter itself. So, hey, whatever. I guess he didn't rape anyone. That's good. Good job, Michel.
Good job! Jesus. That is perfectly sour news, Lawrence. Well done. It's this kind of stuff that makes me think, we should put the news section last in the episode.
And thus the balance is restored. With one hand, Lawrence gives, and with the other, he takes away. Alright, let's get into the big news. Lee, take it away.
Alright. So, I originally wrote in my little news tracker this following sentence that I later updated without really updating. It said, Game Pass gets Bethesda. No, I'm sorry, they bought them?
Microsoft has announced the complete acquisition of Zenimax, that is to say, the parent company behind Bethesda. This makes the relationships between certain studios rather complicated, because one of those studios is Arcane, which is currently making Deathloop, which, as I understand it, is a PlayStation exclusive, which is a little bit awkward.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, they are continuing, that remains the case, because I guess they have to honor their contracts with Sony. And apparently Bethesda says that their games will continue to be console, multiple platforms, which is perplexing, I suppose.
I'm sure this is surely in the short term with their prior applications. I'm sure they're referring to.
I imagine that must be the case. So they're probably going to, even so, Elder Scrolls might. I have mixed feelings about this, because on the other hand, if Microsoft exerts their level of quality assurance, it reassures a lot of the fears that I had regarding the Elder Scrolls 6, which I was cautiously looking forward to. But it also might mean that it won't come out on PlayStation.
Yeah, that is the big if.
I mean, it'll almost certainly come out on PC, and by that point, hopefully, I will have a sufficiently powerful gaming PC in order to play it. So I'm not terribly worried.
Yes, I can't help but feel very snug.
I have to say, though, roughly around the same time that this announcement was made, Bethesda also announced a major overhaul of the creation engine in anticipation of Elder Scrolls 6.
Interesting.
Which, I don't know what that means.
Sounds like they're starting from scratch.
I wouldn't be too sure of that. Because if they just say they're overhauling it, that means, they're just retrofitting it to be more appropriate for the modern days and the needs of the modern game systems.
Which you'd think surely they've done before now, right?
They did it from Oblivion to Skyrim.
Yes, which was a long time ago. And
yes,
in fact, a whole generation ago. And now 2 generations ago.
So, this, I mean, I have very little faith in the creation engine.
Mm-hmm.
It's
bad.
Just been, yeah, I mean, I my condolences to all the technical people who've had to work on it over at Bethesda, because I'm like, the spaghetti code must be unendurable. My goodness. Apparently, there had been a lot of internal pressure for this to happen for some time, but higher ups were like, "Well, the games keep selling, so nope, you don't get the investment you need." So, I guess we'll just have to see. A lot of questions up in the air regarding this one.
Yeah, very exciting to speculate. Very fun. Like, will Microsoft kick out Todd Coward to get real job done? Nah, he's too much of a mascot. I agree.
Todd's untouchable.
Untouchable.
That cheeky smile of his, who could kick him out of that company? I couldn't. I have to say, this is a terrible blow to pundits like us, because it now means that there won't be any more Bethesda press conferences for us to point and laugh at.
You're right.
They've all been incorporated into the great mass that is Microsoft.
Somebody will step up and take the place, though. I mean, this always happens.
I'm sure.
I mean, Bethesda only started this maybe 3 years ago. We have the true opportunity for somebody to just get in there. I mean, who has the hubris? BlizzCon might be too expensive for the future. What if Activision Blizzard get in there? That'd be pretty hilarious.
Well, I mean, they already do that with BlizzCon.
But that's what I mean, right? What if BlizzCon is now too expensive and not...
What if, for whatever reason, Activision Blizzard decide that having a live audience in their press conferences is no longer such a good idea, and have decided to do a completely under their control pre-rendered press conference? Seems feasible.
Seems like it would happen this February at BlizzCon Online, or whatever the hell they're calling it, because that's what I've heard.
Most likely. This could be the proving grounds for it. In any case, this is pretty on point for Microsoft. I mean, do you remember when the Xbox 360 came out? They bought Rare.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And when the Xbox One came out, they purchased a whole bunch of companies. They bragged about it. It was like Obsidian and Double Fine and a couple of others.
This was real late into Xbox One, though. That wasn't launched. That was like last year or the year before.
Well, it's a recognizable strategy of theirs. Halo Infinite isn't doing too good right now. It's like, oh no, my exclusive is ruined. But what if I were to purchase other studios' games and pass them off as my own exclusives? Delightfully devilish, Bill Gates, who no longer works there, but you know what I mean?
I love a Simpsons reference.
This is kind of awkward, isn't it? Because Obsidian and Bethesda are now both under the same aegis again.
Oh yeah. That's
cue all the memes of that bit from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Dennis and the other guy are staring at each other from across the fancy restaurant going, "What are you doing here?"
We spoke a lot about Obsidian's lunch stealing capacity.
Well, now it might be Fallout New Vegas 2 might be in the works. Well, not in the works, but it's on the table again. The cards are on the table. Sure, somebody asked them on Twitter.
Yeah, I know. I seen that, and they got a little shrug emoji. It was pretty cute.
It's like, your guess is as good as ours.
But I don't know if a lot of people remember this, but Obsidian's work with Bethesda in Fallout New Vegas, it was bitterly dictated in terms of success by Metacritic scores. I wonder if they're over it,
No, I think that a lot of the bad blood between them has been exaggerated, and that this story, the Metacritic story, was somewhat misrepresented.
I
remember hearing that. I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure you can't get more directly effective to a whole development team than their money.
So, I remember two things about the story. When it first came out, and everybody was outraged, and then a few years later, it turns out that it was a lot more nuanced than we remember. The problem is that I can't remember what those nuances are, so I'm too scared to commit to anything.
That's fair to follow up.
Yeah, that's a follow-up. So, hold our feet to the fire if we don't bring it up next episode, folks.
Sounds good. I guess the only thing to really iterate is just how shit this is for everybody, really. I mean, look, it's fun to be coy. It's fun to be teasing and ooh. Bethesda was a big company for multi-console launches, cross-platform. That was a company that benefited gaming as a whole, now squirreled away under one banner, which, technically two banners. We can agree that no matter the circumstances here, this is a general loss for consumer autonomy.
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, Todd has, gone on record to say that Bethesda games will still be publishing their own games and that they will continue to be cross-platform, but I don't understand how that can be the case.
Exactly.
And I'm almost certain that, Microsoft didn't make that purchase for no reason, and almost certainly at some point in the future might not be Elder Scrolls 6, but maybe from that point onwards, it's gonna be coming to Xbox, whatever the fuck it is that they call it by that point, because Jesus Christ, these names are terrible.
I guess that's another news story that, what was it? Xbox One X sales went up by something like 700%.
Because almost certainly because people were purchasing the wrong fucking console.
Yes, absolutely the case.
And you saw the hard drive article where copies of the film American History X have skyrocketed.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, you're totally right. I feel like there's no reason. They didn't buy it for no reason. If they're not going to play the exclusivity chip now, it's more than likely an inevitability. You shoot the tide turn.
Well, that story has ended on a somber, uncertain, and bittersweet tone. Do you have any other news stories, Lee?
No, actually, yeah, that was it.
Well, don't worry, here I come to the rescue, because I have tactically sequestered away a secret news item that I had just in case we ended on too somber a tone. Baba Is You was just awarded the Game Designers Award at the Japan Game Show by Sakurai himself.
What?
Hooray! Golf clap! Golf clap!
I thought Baba Is You was slightly older than just last year. It really is last year released?
Yeah, time is convoluted in 2020. In any case, that's a night. Now that I have finished Tyranny, and I'm making a hard pivot to short form games for Vectormen, I'm going to be making. This was a much needed boot up the arse to remind me that Baba Is You is the same thing. Is a thing that is still existing, and it is on my hard drive, still installed. So I should get back to it.
Nice work. It almost feels nostalgic. Hearing it. It's been so long since mentioned.
It's probably, if you're a listener who's been listening to us on the live stream on twitch.tv/Vectormen Live,
well done.
Then this will be seamless for you, because by the time that the latest episode comes out, you've probably just finished listening to the episode where I talk about Baba Is You for the first time.
So true. Also, randomly nostalgic. After listening to a bunch of those episodes, I realized that the racial equality bundle existed, and remembered that there were at least like 4 or 5 named games that I had never touched that were in that bundle that I have now downloaded. And now stuff like Pyre might finally be part of the podcast and experience.
Pyre's a good time. Pyre's a good time.
I know we've got a lot of. I'm starting to build cubby holes here. Too many cubby holes. A house of cubby holes.
Yeah, too many.
It's gonna fall. It's gonna fall over. Like a house built around cubby holes seems parasitic in nature. So I'm gonna assume it can't function.
No, it's like the Winchester house.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, do you know that old story about the widow of the Winchester gun empire? Was schizophrenic, or she was haunted by the ghosts of victims of Winchester rifles, so she built a house that was chaotic, and it was always under construction, and there was doors that led nowhere and stairways into like death traps, into like pits, so that the ghosts would always get confused and never be able to get her.
No, I wasn't.
The Winchester house.
I was never aware of this, but I can see there is a YouTube page.
Well, I will leave that to you then.
Sounds good. Check in next week on Follow Up. I'm going to talk about the Winchester Mystery House. You're fucking out of the edge of your seat now, aren't you?
See you next week. Hail Kairos. That was a lot of wasted time.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You're liking how I'm not using 100% anymore? I'm impressed.
I have noticed. I know that you've been varying it up quite a bit with exactly, and of course.
It's not even intentional anymore.
Completely.
I've just written the word out of my mind. And now that I've listened to some of our older episodes, via our live streaming. I'm even more amazed as to how the hell I've managed to make this work, because it was so... I've started this is a tangent, but I've started to wonder if it was coming from a nervous place.
Most likely.
You know, like where you hang on to a word in terms of...
Falling back on verbal tics.
Yeah. And it's not even it was one that I developed in the last year or so, but it was certainly one that I feel like, just because podcasting in our form with the two of us was so new and so fresh, that I was like, every time I'm listening to you, I'm giving you the 100% because I'm 100% listening to you. I'm panicking.
Mm-hmm. See, we're seasoned veterans now. We don't fall for such things, such lowly tricks.
Exactly.
Aren't you glad that you had such an unsympathetic and scathing co-host to point out your weaknesses for all to see?
Absolutely. You know, that reminds me of... It's like being with family, because my family are
uncompromising.
Scathing.
Any moment of human weakness is seized upon.
So, you know, it's like being at home now, you and I.
Listener, when you're with Vectormen, you're with family. Unrelenting, merciless family.